Hey everybody, Deathblade here with another reaction to the Untamed. This is actually the first video I am doing after the birth of my daughter. She was born just a few days ago. She's not even a week old now. So needless to say, I have definitely been suffering from sleep deprivation. That said, for anybody out there who has not had kids, I can tell you that when a baby is first born, that is the absolute easiest time. It's almost not even hard at all to take care of a baby. Other than the sleepless nights, basically you don't have anything difficult to deal with. They sleep most of the time, eat, poop. That's pretty much it. So this is actually a great time for me to record a video. Before I get started, I wanted to point out that if you go to my website, which is jeremybai.com, I have this page called Dark Wuxia Film and Book Recommendations, and it's specifically geared toward the game that I have coming out in a few months called Righteous Blood Ruthless Blades. It's a Wuxia tabletop role-playing game similar to Dungeons and Dragons. This film list and book list is basically some of the main inspiration we used for that game, and you don't even have to be interested in the game to basically go here and find just a ton of amazing wuxia movies. Going all the way back, as you can see here, here's Dragon Gate Inn in 1967. Here's Dragon Wuxia in 2011. It runs the gamut in terms of when these things were filmed. I have links to a couple YouTube, but mostly to Amazon. There's about 30 of them on here that you can view for free if you have Amazon Prime. And then going down the list, there's also fiction books as well and a few non-fiction books. So if you are new to the genre, or if you only have experience, for example, watching Untamed, feel free to check it out. Again, this is definitely not in the same line as the Untamed. It's darker and kind of like action-oriented and whatnot, but there are definitely some really good things here, so go check it out. I want to point out very quickly as well that Tencent has been actually manually demonetizing some of these reaction videos. I try to edit them carefully so that they don't get automatically flagged for copyright violation. I cut the clips up, make sure they're short, but I've had at least one where Tencent came back several weeks later and manually flagged it, and so I lost any income on that, and they get it. Now, it's not like I'm making a ton of money on these or anything like that, but it does take a good chunk of my time. And so if you are interested in supporting the channel, I would really appreciate that. You can like, you can subscribe, you can comment. There are also links in the description below for more ways to support. So I thank you very much for anybody who would consider that. Okay, that's it for now. Let's get on with the Untamed Season 1, Episode 6. Makes complete sense that he went to get peanuts. I have done a lot of drinking in China, and usually drinking is done differently. There is not really bar culture in China. You don't hang out and have drinks. This is how, generally speaking, people drink in China. You're sitting around. It's going to be after dinner time. Of course, there's going to be drinking during dinner time, but after you finish dinner, a lot of time the drinkers will sit around a table. They'll have some peanuts or maybe some other kind of snack, and then they'll drink to each other. They'll toast. They'll chat. I have had so many conversations just like this with my father-in-law, who is a big-time drinker. So yeah, this is totally culturally accurate and exactly how I have experienced drinking so many times in China. Okay, so I just watched this a little bit and then I rebound because I want to show you some kind of interesting. One of the things that is a pet peeve of mine is when the character jiao is translated as wine. It's pretty common among translators, and I get it. I think that most people who are familiar with Chinese culture will understand that when it says jiao, it doesn't necessarily mean wine as in grape wine. Yellow wine is a really common thing. There's also baijiu, but those are not grape wine. And I think in English, when you say wine, the average person is going to think of grape wine, which is wrong. So I prefer to translate it as alcohol or liquor. I think what is very interesting in this scene, as you go through, I'll point it out, they actually go back and forth between translating it as liquor and wine. So I'm not sure why they decided to go back and forth and didn't just stick with one. I personally really like when he calls it liquor because we don't know what they're drinking. It could be something like yellow wine, which, I did a whole video on this before, but basically yellow wine is very similar to grape wine in terms of the alcohol content, but it also could be something akin to baijiu, which might be something like anywhere from 40 to 50% alcohol or higher. So it's hard to say what specifically they're supposed to be drinking here. I don't know if it elaborates in the novel or in the animation. Anyway, keep an eye out. I'll point out how they translate it differently. See, here he calls it liquor. And they use the same character, jiao. And then he's going to go here to make a quote. Okay, see here he calls it a great wine. See, there he calls it liquor.
如果有酒的话。
And here he calls it wine again. Oh, it's all the same character, 酒.
温柔贤惠，勤俭持家。
So I gotta go back here really quickly.
像你这种标准，才没有人
So they're obviously talking about what kind of girls he likes, and then he says he's going to talk about it, and then he just says beauty. But what he says in Chinese is 美女, which means beautiful girls. It's a little bit different feeling in Chinese. It's like he said, what kind of girls does he like? He likes hot chicks, basically is what he's saying. If you do a Google search for 美女 on the internet in China, you can imagine what kind of pictures are going to come up.
妻子。
Okay. Let's jump back here really quickly. Yeah. So in English it said significant others. Chinese 妻子 literally says wife. So yeah, why did they change wife to significant other?
魏无羡，可是藏色散人的正是魏长泽公子和藏色。
So this word right here, 散人, is actually a title, and it's commonly used in Taoist names. I don't think I've done a video about this before, but basically Taoist names are essentially sort of like nicknames that people will select upon becoming an official like Taoist. In the fantasy novels, obviously it's used a little bit more loosely, but in any case, this right here, 散人, it's a title, so it should be translated something along the lines of, I don't know, it might be a little bit hard to translate, but a translator could use a lot of discretion in coming up with something cool sounding like an ascetic or maybe a hermit or something. It essentially, the literal definition, a person that doesn't have any official duties, an idle person. Bastinado. What the heck is a bastinado? So in Chinese, if I look it up in my dictionary, which I did just now, it actually does have this word here, bastinado, which, if I look it up in the English dictionary, says a mode of punishment consisting of blows with a stick on the soles of the feet, or a blow or a beating with a stick, or just a stick or a cudgel. Other definitions in my dictionary say a teacher's ruler for beating pupils, a disciplinary ruler. So, okay, as I think I mentioned in previous videos, I'm not a fan of using these really weird and archaic words. I would have just called it a rod or maybe a cudgel or something like that. We saw the image of it in the beginning of the scene. They're just basically big sticks.
玄沙术，这不是你们蓝氏的家传绝学吗？
So I just heard this, I jumped back. Here he calls it a peculiar trick in Chinese. It's not pulling up here in Chinese, but he called it a 绝学 in Chinese. And 绝 usually means some sort of like ultimate thing, and 学 means some kind of technique or method or branch of learning or something. I mean, I think personally in English, a trick sounds kind of just like it's some random thing. Instead, he was saying, is this like some incredible, awesome technique specific to your clan?
我就看看，绝对不动。抱歉，不拿起来，我怎么看个究竟啊？
So isn't that a little bit weird in the English? He says, I won't touch it, then he immediately reaches out to grab it. That's because in Chinese he didn't say he's not going to touch it. He said something like, 我绝对不动. Dong literally means to move or to use in some senses. Okay, I find this really, really weird. I actually watched this whole scene before and I came back to check something else, and then I decided to look at the Chinese end. Here it says, Sha Xian Shan. Xian is immortal. Shan is mountain. Why are they translating it as kill the gentry? I'm baffled by that. Incidentally, the yin iron, this yin is the same as from yin and yang, or if you're speaking proper Chinese, yin and yang. And basically yin is associated with darkness and cold, a lot of times with underworld stuff and death. So I'm not really sure if that has anything to do with why they're down here and everything is freezing cold. A moment ago Wei Wuxia mentioned that the water is freezing but hasn't frozen over. That would definitely be explained if it's connected somehow to this yin character from the yin iron. Is there something I missed? Like, why is she tired from literally just walking around? Like, she wasn't injured. She's not pregnant, is she? She's not sick. So why is she like winded and needs to rest while they're searching? Did I miss something? Okay, sorry, I know this is supposed to be like romantic moment, but how did he end up literally right behind her? Like, look at how much space is here. All this group would have had to have been moving extremely stealthily to end up right behind her right when she slipped.
云梦江氏后学魏婴，拜见前辈。
So here's an interesting thing. If you look, I'm going to jump back here really quickly. In English, he addresses her by her title, says Master Lani or whatever. But in Chinese, he says, he says his name here.
后学魏婴，拜见前辈。
And then he says, 拜见前辈. Baijian is the way of offering formal greetings by bowing and clasping hands or whatever. And then Qianbei is basically referring to, Qian means previous and Bei means generation. It means the senior generation or the elder generation. He actually says, greetings, senior, or whatever you wanted to translate Qianbei as.
前辈，传闻您先去读。
Just make sure I heard that correctly.
前辈，
Yeah.
传闻
Rumor has it that you, and he uses the honorific form of you, by the way. So in case you're not aware, Chinese has two common words for you. One of them is just general. The other is honorific, similar to sir or ma'am. So I usually translate it as sir or ma'am or something along those lines. Now, here's an interesting thing as well. In English, he says, a rumor was that you had passed away years ago. Well, it's a little bit more complex. There's an actual word for to pass away. This is xianqiu, which literally means to become an immortal. Now, I don't really know how the cultivation system works up to, other than what I've seen so far. In the cultivation novels, a lot of times they will use these common Chinese terms a little bit differently. So if I was translating this, I would need to go ahead to find out in this novel, does xianqiu literally mean to become an immortal, or does it mean to die? Because figuratively, it can also mean just to pass away or to die. So I'm curious how the world works here. Does xianqiu mean to pass away, just the common expression, or does it mean to become an immortal?
这难道就是天意？
前辈，
Okay, look, there's so much. I get this all makes sense, but let me just go over what they're actually saying.
如今风静文，法力日渐消散，我的灵识
Right here, she says, she doesn't say energy, she says Ling Shi. I've mentioned this I think I mentioned this in a couple reaction videos ago. This is her spirit sense or her spiritual consciousness or something like that. And then
也越来越弱。你们又来了，这难道就是天意？
And then here she says Tianyi. I mean, it's fine, you can translate it as destined, but Tianyi literally means the will of heaven. That's how it's often translated in literature, because that's literally what it means, the will of heaven. And I guess destined works as fine as well, but I don't feel like it may be the will of heaven would be any more difficult to read in the subtitles than it may be destined. I would translate it as the will of heaven just because it sounds cooler.
刚刚是一片仙山，而薛崇海也是当年法力最高强的国师。
So just really quick, everybody, I remember he's called the Yiling Laozu, I think. Yiling Laozu, Yiling Patriarch. I'm going to guess it's connected, or is it a different Yiling? I wasn't paying attention to the Chinese characters before.
后来因薛崇海以活人为生，摄取活人灵识，甚至修饰灵人，这是阴铁怨气
Even
四溢，
gentries with
可惜那
power.
天地
Hold
之
on.
气。后来因薛崇海以活人为生，摄取活人灵识，甚至修
What? Am I...
饰灵人，这是阴铁怨气四溢，再没有可能地之气。后来因薛崇海以活人
Hold
为
on.
生，
Fed
摄
it
取活人
with living spirits, even gentries of power.
灵识，甚至修
It's just using Xiushi, the character for Cultivator. Wow. I'm definitely souring on these subtitles.
饰灵。我与好友抱山散人，促膝长谈，却遭
So
受
did you notice
阻
that
碍
it
重
was
重。
another
后来，
instance of Sanren being just transliterated instead of being a title?
促膝长，寒潭洞灵脉充裕，四方之寒之气汇聚于此， 凝结了永世不动的一池寒潭。不仅是冷泉的源头，也是封印阴铁的绝佳之
See,
地。
told you.
阴铁被我临时封印，而我却再也不能离开这里。
So based on this, I'm going to guess that my earlier question about Xianxia is answered. I guess it doesn't mean to become immortal, but basically was being used just to refer to passing away or dying. Although I'm guessing she didn't actually die. I think she said she's sealing herself here or something. That's kind of a common thing to, in the moment of death, preserve one's consciousness or maybe one's form to stay in one place to act as a guardian or something like that. You see that in these novels all the time. Yep. Okay, so let me exit out of here really quickly. Alright, so that's it for episode 6. Now, I have a couple different things I want to say. First of all, I like the way the story is progressing, and I can see these threads starting to build together into a cool, complicated story. I'm definitely souring a lot on the subtitles. There's just so much stuff that's either missing or wrong or left out. I get that in subtitles there is limited space, and they can't translate everything directly and literally. I get that. But man, there's just a lot of stuff that I disagree with. And I do know, based on the comments everybody have made, that there are other versions of the subtitles. And so that's great to whatever translators took the time to make more accurate or better subtitles. That's great. And I'm glad that you have done that. I am going to continue to watch the Netflix version. On the one hand, I can understand what they're saying by listening, either that or pop subtitles up to double check what's being said. And also, I think that for anybody who does watch it on Netflix, maybe my insights might help a little bit to be able to understand the story better in general. So that's all I have for this reaction video. I hope that my insights are interesting and unique and help you to understand the genre and the show better. And if you have any questions or comments, please do leave them below. I do try to check all the comments, and I want to thank everybody for leaving those comments. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe and share the video if you can, and I will see you next time. Cultivation.